The alien queen couldn't fathom the human she married, revealed his true power. The sky above was a strange mixture of green and gold, with two suns casting shadows that shifted in unusual ways. Around him, the city stretched high into the sky, its buildings tall and slender, made of a material that shimmered like glass but seemed stronger than steel. He paused for a moment to take it in, but there was little time to admire. Queen Leora, his wife, waited nearby, her posture perfect, her expression calm but curious as always. She was beautiful, more beautiful than any human could imagine. Her skin was smooth and pale with a subtle silver glow, and her eyes, large and violet, seemed to see everything at once. Around her, the court of Violia had gathered, their thin, elegant bodies swaying slightly as if moving with the rhythm of some silent music. Their faces showed curiosity, disbelief, and sometimes suspicion. They did not hide their thoughts. A human was not supposed to marry the Queen of Violia. John felt their stares but ignored them. He had faced challenges before, some of them far worse than this, but nothing like the constant, quiet judgment of an entire alien court. He took a deep breath and adjusted the simple tunic he wore. Humans did not wear fancy clothes on this planet, and he preferred comfort and ease over appearances. The court seemed to notice, and some raised a thin eyebrow. Leora approached him gracefully, her hand brushing his arm. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Her voice was musical, almost hypnotic, but there was tension beneath it. She had expected more from this human, more strength or more flamboyance. Instead, he was calm. Too calm, perhaps. John gave her a small smile. "I am ready," he said. He didn't sound nervous. He sounded normal, like any human might sound when they were about to meet new people. But humans were not normal to Violians. The court began to circle around them, forming a wide ring. The floor beneath them was smooth and warm, humming faintly with energy. John had felt energy like this before, but never so strong. It pulsed under his feet, and he knew that even small mistakes could be dangerous. Humans were not used to this kind of energy manipulation, but somehow he felt it respond to him in small ways. He did not touch it. He simply walked, and the energy seemed to move around him, almost as if it respected him. The Violian Council stepped forward, their leader, an older female named Kayla, speaking first. Her voice was sharp, commanding, but not unkind. "John Miller," she said. "You have married our queen, you are human, you are far from your world, we have questions, we want to see if you are worthy." John nodded. "I understand," he replied. His voice carried no fear, it carried no arrogance. It carried something else, something that the aliens could not read. Kayla motioned, and several devices floated into the air. They were strange alien machines pulsing with energy. "These are the tests," she explained. "They are not deadly unless you fail." She gave a faint smile, and John noticed the almost imperceptible tension behind her words. Even Violians knew humans could be unpredictable, but they did not expect them to survive this. John studied the devices. They were not like any human technology he had ever seen. They floated in the air, controlled by energy fields, and seemed to react to thought and emotion. He had faced dangers before, machines, weapons, creatures, but nothing like this. Still, he felt calm. He had learned long ago that fear only made things harder. "Shall we begin?" John asked. He turned to Leora, who nodded slightly, her eyes filled with something between worry and admiration. He smiled at her. "I will do my best," he said. The first test involved a device that hovered in the air, a sphere of glowing metal and energy. It vibrated as he approached. The council watched carefully, whispering among themselves. Humans were clever, yes, but could they handle energy manipulation at this level? John extended a hand slowly. The device hummed louder as if sensing his presence. The energy swirled around his fingers, bright and hot, but he did not flinch. He moved his hand gently, guiding the flow. The sphere rotated, then stabilized, then glowed steadily without threat. The council exchanged glances. They had expected sparks, explosions, perhaps even failure. Instead, the human had controlled the device with ease. Leora's eyes widened. "You did not even touch it with force," she said softly. "You just moved it." John shrugged lightly. "It responds to intent," he explained. "Not strength." The next tests were harder. One involved walking across a platform suspended high above the ground with energy barriers that shifted randomly. Aliens had failed this before. Humans were heavier and less agile than Violians, and the barriers could slice through flesh and bone. John simply walked, adjusting his balance instinctively, his mind calculating the movements in advance. The barriers moved, but he flowed through them like water. The council whispered in astonishment. Kayla frowned, clearly frustrated by her own misjudgment. "This human," she muttered, "he is not ordinary." Another test involved a creature, a small, aggressive alien animal meant to test reflexes and courage. It lunged at him with claws that could pierce armor. John caught it gently by the scruff, immobilizing it without harm, and set it down. The creature backed away, unafraid, as if it recognized him. The court murmured. None of the Virelians could have done this without injury. Through all this, John remained calm, humble, and quiet. He did not boast. He did not seek attention. He simply acted with precision, instinct, and intelligence. And everywhere he went, the energy of the world seemed to bend slightly, almost acknowledging him. Leora watched from the side, her heart racing. She had known humans were different, but this was beyond her understanding. He was not just clever or brave, he seemed unstoppable. Not in a loud, violent way, but in a quiet, controlled way that suggested he could survive anything. And she realized slowly that this human she married, this ordinary-looking man, was far more powerful than anyone, even herself, could imagine. By the end of the tests, the council was silent. John had completed every challenge flawlessly without a single misstep. Some whispered that he had cheated, that humans could not possibly achieve such control. Kayla, however, knew the truth. He had not cheated. He was simply different. Leora stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on John's arm. "You have shown them," she said, her voice full of awe. "You have shown them that humans are not what they expect." John smiled, a small, calm smile. "I am not here to prove anything," he said. "I am here to live, to protect, and to be with you." The council began to retreat slowly, murmuring among themselves. Even the skeptics could not deny what they had seen. Humans were not weak. Humans were not simple. And this John Miller, was more than anyone had ever imagined. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and green, John and Leora walked together through the city. He noticed the strange architecture, the flowing streets, the quiet beauty of the alien gardens. He felt at peace. He felt powerful, not because of force, but because he understood something the aliens did not. Strength was not always obvious. Courage was not always loud. And intelligence could take forms that even the most advanced aliens could not anticipate. Leora glanced at him. "Do you ever tire?" she asked softly. John shook his head. "I do not tire easily, but I do rest when needed. Humans are adaptable. That is our greatest strength." She nodded slowly, realizing the truth in his words. She had married a human expecting companionship, perhaps even protection. Instead, she had married a being who could change the way her people thought about the entire galaxy. As night fell, the city lit up with soft, glowing lights. Aliens of all kinds moved about, some stopping to stare at the human walking with the queen. Whispers followed them everywhere, full of disbelief and curiosity. John did not mind. He never had. He simply walked beside Leora, ready for whatever came next. He knew this world, this court, and this queen would challenge him in ways he had never imagined. And he was ready for all of it. By the time they reached the palace, John had already begun to understand the subtle energies of Virelia, the delicate politics of its court, and the hidden strengths of its people. He knew that the real test was not the devices, the platforms, or the creatures. It was the perception of him. The aliens had expected weakness. They had found none. And he smiled quietly, knowing that the journey was only beginning. The next morning, the palace of Virelia was alive with activity. Servants glided along the hallways, carrying trays of glowing liquids and strange, aromatic foods. The council met quietly in a side chamber, whispering in low, urgent voices. Word of John Miller's calm mastery of the previous day's tests had spread quickly. Aliens from every corner of the city had gathered in small groups to discuss the human who had tamed their energy devices and walked unscathed through impossible obstacles. John sat with Leora in the central garden of the palace, a vast space filled with tall, shimmering plants that bent and moved as if alive. He studied them carefully, noting the faint pulses of energy that ran through each leaf and stem. Humans had a natural ability to adapt to new environments, and John was using it now, observing the world of Virelia, learning its rhythms and flows. Leora watched him with a mixture of pride and curiosity. "You are unlike anything I imagined," she said softly. "Even yesterday, when you controlled the devices, I could not understand how you did it. John smiled gently. It is not magic, he replied. It is observation, patience, and knowing when to act. That is how humans survive. That is how I survive. Before she could respond, a loud chime echoed through the garden. It was the council summoning them. John stood, brushing dust from his tunic. Leora offered her arm, and they walked together toward the great hall where the council waited. Kayla, the leader, was already speaking when they entered. Her voice carried a sharp authority, but beneath it there was a trace of something new, respect and perhaps even fear. John Miller, she said, you have passed the first tests, but the challenges ahead are greater. We must see the depth of your abilities. We must see how far a human can truly go. John nodded. I will do what I can. His voice was calm, steady, and filled with certainty. Leora's heart raced at the thought of what might come next. She had married a human expecting companionship, expecting a partner. Instead, she had married someone who could change the course of her people's history. The council led them to a large chamber, circular and open to the sky above. In the center floated a massive structure, a device that seemed alive. It pulsed with blue and green energy, shifting and twisting in ways that made John's eyes narrow with concentration. The air hummed with power. The council spoke of the device as a test of strategy, intelligence, and courage. None had ever completed it. Many had been injured trying. John studied the device carefully. Its energy flows were intricate, looping and twisting, almost like a living organism. He extended a hand instinctively, feeling the vibrations through the air. He did not touch it, and yet it seemed to respond, moving slightly in his direction as if curious. The council's whispers grew louder. Even the queen could not hide her astonishment. The first part of the challenge was simple in description, but impossible in execution. John had to guide a stream of unstable energy from the device through a series of floating conduits that hovered above the floor. A single misstep, a single miscalculation, and the energy would explode, destroying everything in the chamber. He stepped forward carefully. His mind worked quickly, calculating angles, force, and timing. He moved his hands through the air, guiding the energy gently. The stream shimmered, bending around obstacles, passing through the conduits flawlessly. The council gasped. Aliens had failed at this stage many times, and humans were not known for precise energy manipulation. Yet John moved through it with calm, quiet control. Leora's eyes were wide. How do you do that? She whispered. John smiled faintly. I watch, I wait, I act, I do not force, I guide. The next stage of the challenge involved multiple devices that activated in sequence. Each device emitted a pulse that could knock a human off balance or even harm them. John moved with precision, reading the pulses as they came, stepping only when necessary, ducking when needed, and adjusting his timing constantly. The devices hummed around him, but none touched him. The council could not believe what they were seeing. After what felt like hours but was only moments, John reached the center of the chamber. The devices quieted, their energy stabilizing. He had passed the first major challenge without injury, without fear, without even breaking a sweat. The council members exchanged nervous glances. Kayla's frown deepened. This human, he should not be able to do this. He is not trained in our ways. He is not Virelian. John turned to her, calm and composed. I am human, he said simply. I do not need to be Virelian to succeed. The next challenge was even more dangerous. The council brought forward a small but incredibly fierce alien creature. It had long, spindly limbs ending in razor-sharp claws and eyes that glowed with a dangerous intelligence. The creature was released onto the chamber floor, and it immediately charged at John with terrifying speed. Leora gasped. John, be careful, she cried, but he did not flinch. He had faced dangerous creatures before, creatures designed to kill, and humans were survivors by nature. He crouched slightly, letting the creature come close, reading its movements, its intentions. When it leapt, John moved with perfect timing. He dodged lightly, guiding the creature with a gentle push that sent it off balance but did not harm it. The creature snarled, lunged again, and again John shifted, guiding it with minimal force until it finally stopped, confused and calm. The council was silent. No one had ever controlled the creature without injury. The Virelians stared, mouths open. Leora approached John, her hand trembling slightly as she touched his arm. You make it look so easy, she said softly. John shrugged lightly. It is not easy, he said. It is understanding. Humans have to survive in a world that is not kind. We learn to read, to adapt, to act without wasting strength. Kayla stepped forward, her face pale but determined. Enough games, she said sharply. You have shown skill, yes, but we must see if you can face the true test. Intelligence alone will not be enough. Courage alone will not be enough. Strategy alone will not be enough. The next challenge will test all three together. John nodded. I am ready, he said simply. He had learned that showing hesitation would only create doubt. Calm certainty was far stronger than words. The final test involved a complex series of puzzles and traps spread across the chamber. Energy fields that could slice through metal, platforms that moved unpredictably, and creatures that attacked without warning. The goal was to reach a central point and activate a device that controlled the chamber itself. Failure could be deadly. John approached the first puzzle, a floating panel with a series of symbols. The symbols shifted constantly, changing shape and meaning. He studied them carefully, recognizing patterns that even the Viorlians might have missed. Slowly, methodically, he arranged the symbols in sequence. The panel glowed green, indicating success. The next section was a series of moving platforms suspended over a pit filled with energy spikes. Timing was crucial. John stepped carefully, adjusting his balance constantly, moving faster or slower depending on the platform's movement. The creatures attacking him were fast and unpredictable, but he dodged, ducked, and guided them away with precise movements. The council watched in awe. They had expected the human to fail, expected him to be weak and clumsy. Instead, he moved like a force of nature, calm, deliberate, and unstoppable. Leora could barely keep up with his pace, her heart racing as she followed him through the challenges. Finally, John reached the central device. It was a large, glowing orb suspended in midair, pulsating with raw energy. Many had tried to touch it before and had been thrown back by its force. John extended his hand, feeling the energy vibrate against his skin. He did not pull back. Instead, he moved slowly, guiding the energy into a controlled flow, stabilizing the orb. The chamber quieted. The energy pulsed gently, no longer dangerous. The council was silent, staring in disbelief. No one had ever completed the full test. John had done it, and he had done it without harm, without fear, without hesitation. Leora stepped forward, her eyes wide with awe. I cannot believe it, she said softly. You are extraordinary. John looked at her, calm and gentle. I am human, he said simply. We are capable of more than most think, that is all. Kayla, the council leader, bowed slightly, her face pale but filled with respect. John Miller, she said, her voice quiet, you have shown us something we never thought possible. A human controlling our energy, facing our challenges, surviving our tests. It is remarkable, John smiled faintly. I do not seek praise, he said. I seek understanding. Humans survive by learning, by adapting, by acting when needed. The council murmured among themselves. Some were in shock, some were in awe, and some were beginning to reconsider everything they knew about humans. Leora watched John, her heart swelling with pride and amazement. He had faced impossible challenges and emerged not just unharmed but victorious. As the sun set over Violia, painting the sky with colors John had never seen on Earth, he and Leora walked back through the palace gardens. The air was warm and filled with the soft hum of energy from the plants. John observed, learned, and adapted. Leora observed him, learning in a new way, that the human she married was not only clever and brave, but unstoppable when it mattered most. And in that quiet moment, she realized something she had never truly understood before. The power of humans was not in weapons, not in technology, not even in numbers. It was in their courage, their adaptability, and their unyielding will to survive. John Miller had shown the court of Violia the truth, and in doing so, he had begun to change the way they saw not just him, but every human in the galaxy. The morning sun rose over Violia, casting long golden streaks across the palace gardens. John Miller walked quietly along a path of shimmering stones, the soft hum of energy from the plants all around him filling the air. Leora walked beside him, silent for a moment, then finally spoke. You handled the tests yesterday as if they were nothing, she said softly. I don't know how you did it. John glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. It wasn't nothing, he replied. It just looks easy because I approach it differently. I watch, I learn, I act when needed. That is how humans survive. That is how I survive. Leora shook her head slightly. You are extraordinary, John. Even I did not expect this. John did not respond immediately. He was focused on the subtle shifts in energy around him. Violia was full of hidden currents. small but strong, and he had begun to notice patterns the aliens themselves did not see. Humans were not naturally adapted to this planet, but John had a skill that even the most advanced aliens struggled to understand: intuition, combined with observation. Before he could explain further, a sudden alarm rang throughout the palace. Red lights flashed and the hum of the energy in the city shifted violently. Leora tensed. "What is happening?" she asked, fear in her voice. John's eyes narrowed. "Trouble," he said simply. He began walking quickly toward the source, Leora keeping pace with him. The streets outside the palace were filled with chaos. Aliens ran in every direction, shouting in their strange, musical language. A small group of Virelian soldiers attempted to fight off a swarm of creatures that had somehow entered the city, but they were overwhelmed. John assessed the situation in an instant. The creatures were fast, strong, and highly coordinated. Any ordinary human would have panicked, but John's mind worked quickly, analyzing their patterns, predicting their movements. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device, simple by human standards, but capable of amplifying his physical abilities slightly. He did not hesitate. With precise, calculated movements, he moved toward the first group of creatures. They lunged at him with sharp claws, but he sidestepped easily, dodging each strike. Then, with a well-placed kick, he sent one flying into a wall. Another creature charged, and John grabbed it by the legs, flipping it over and pinning it down. Leora watched in shock. She had seen him handle small creatures before, but this was different. These were aggressive, dangerous, and nearly impossible to control. Yet he moved through them as if they were weightless shadows. The crowd of Virelians began to stop and stare. They had seen humans before, but never like this. John was not just surviving, he was dominating, controlling, and directing the battle with a calm precision that made the aliens question everything they knew. Leora called out, trying to help. "John, be careful." "I am careful," he replied without turning. "Watch and learn." He did not shout, he did not panic, he simply moved. Every strike, every dodge, every maneuver was calculated. Within minutes, he had driven the creatures back, guiding them into traps and barriers that the aliens had not even noticed. The city fell silent for a moment, broken only by the hum of the energy currents. The council arrived, their faces pale, but they did not interfere. They watched, understanding that this human had powers beyond their comprehension. After the creatures were contained, John turned to Leora. "They are strong but predictable," he said. "All living things have patterns, you just need to find them." Leora stared at him, her eyes wide. "Patterns?" she asked. "You just controlled them, you didn't even touch them directly. How?" John smiled faintly. "Observation," he said. "Patience, timing. Humans are good at surviving in impossible situations. We adapt." "That is our strength." The council leader, Kayla, stepped forward. "This is remarkable," she said, her voice low. "I have never seen anything like this. You are not just human, you are something more." John shook his head. "I am just human," he said simply. "I have faced dangers before, things you cannot imagine. That is all." The day continued with more challenges. Reports came in of small disturbances in other parts of the city, strange energy fluctuations that threatened to destabilize buildings and harm the citizens. John moved from one location to another, coordinating defenses, guiding both humans and Virelians, and stabilizing the energy currents. Everywhere he went, he adapted to the situation instantly, using his intuition and knowledge to solve problems that no alien had been able to fix. Leora followed him closely, unable to hide her awe. "You are incredible," she said softly. "I knew humans were clever, but I did not realize this." John did not respond immediately. He was focused on a floating platform above the central plaza, where energy spikes threatened to collapse a building. He reached it, analyzing the currents. With careful movements, he guided the energy, stabilizing the platform and saving the structure. The citizens below cheered quietly, but the council merely stared, their faces pale with disbelief. By evening, the city was calm. The disturbances had been contained, the energy currents stabilized, and the creatures returned to their proper habitats. Leora turned to John, her expression a mixture of admiration and worry. You saved the city," she said softly. "You did what no one else could. How?" John shrugged lightly. "I did not do it alone," he said. "Humans are good at working with others, at understanding situations quickly. I simply applied what I know. It is not magic, only understanding." Kayla approached them, her face serious. "John Miller," she said, You have not only passed our tests, but have shown abilities that surpass our expectations. You are unlike any human we have ever known. You have changed how we see your species." John nodded. "I do not seek to change perceptions," he said. "I only seek to survive and protect those around me. That is all any human does." Leora reached out, taking his hand gently. "You are more than I ever imagined," she said. "You are extraordinary." John looked at her, calm and steady. "Extraordinary is relative," he said. "To humans, I am simply surviving. To aliens, perhaps it seems more. But it is all the same. Observe, adapt, act. That is all." The council members whispered among themselves, still struggling to understand what they had witnessed. A human, so ordinary in appearance, had solved problems that even the most advanced Virelians could not. It was unprecedented. Leora and John walked through the palace gardens later that evening, the air filled with soft glows from the energy plants. She watched him closely, noticing the subtle movements of his hands, the way his eyes seemed to read everything at once. He was not just physically strong, he was clever, observant, and calm under pressure. "You are full of surprises, John Miller," she said softly. John smiled faintly. "I have learned to survive in many places," he said. "The galaxy is full of dangers. Humans learn to adapt quickly. That is our advantage." As they walked, Leora began to understand the true nature of her husband's abilities. He was not just skilled, he was different in ways she could barely comprehend. The calm confidence, the quiet control, the ability to read patterns and act without hesitation. It was unlike anything she had seen in her entire life. That night, as the sun set and the city of Virelia fell into a gentle quiet, John sat by the palace window, observing the subtle shifts of energy across the landscape. Leora joined him, her hand resting on his arm. "You have changed everything," she said softly. John looked at her calmly. "No, I have only shown what humans can do," he replied. "It is your people who must learn. It is your world that must adapt. I am only the beginning." She nodded slowly, realizing the truth in his words. The aliens had expected weakness. They had found none. The humans they had dismissed as fragile and simple were capable of things beyond imagination. And John, her husband, was living proof. By the time the night fully descended, John had already begun planning quietly in his mind. There were other challenges ahead, other dangers that no one had yet seen. He would face them, as he always had, observing, adapting, and acting when needed. And Leora, for the first time, understood the full power of the human she had married. The stars above Virelia twinkled softly, but John's eyes were on the world below. The city was safe for now, but there were greater tests to come, and he was ready. Leora leaned against him, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am glad you are here," she said. John smiled faintly, looking out at the city. "As am I," he replied. "Together we can face anything." And in that moment, the alien queen realized something she had never understood before. The human she had married was not ordinary, not weak, and not simple. He was something else entirely. A force that could not be measured by alien standards, a being who could survive, adapt, and overcome anything. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the galaxy itself would never be the same again because of him. The day began quietly over Virelia, but John Miller already sensed something was wrong. The air felt heavier than usual, and the subtle hum of energy from the city pulsed with an unusual rhythm. He walked through the palace gardens with Leora at his side, observing the patterns of the plants and the flow of energy. To an ordinary human, it might have seemed peaceful, but John had learned to notice small changes, small signs that indicated danger. "Something is coming," he said quietly. Leora looked at him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" she asked. John's eyes narrowed. "The energy currents are shifting. It is subtle, but it is wrong. Someone or something is approaching, and it will not be friendly." Before Leora could respond, alarms sounded throughout the city. Red lights flashed, and loud sirens echoed in the streets. The council appeared quickly, moving with urgency. Soldiers ran to their posts, but there was fear in their eyes. John had faced danger before, and he knew how to read it. This was serious. "What is happening?" Leora asked, her voice tense. John did not answer immediately. He was scanning the city, observing every movement, calculating the threat. From the horizon, he could see strange shapes moving in the sky, ships unlike any Virelian vessels, dark and jagged, moving with speed and precision. They were coming fast. "They are attacking," John said calmly, "and they are not here to negotiate." The council leader, Kayla, stepped forward, her face pale. "We have never seen ships like these," she said. "They are not from our sector. How is a human supposed to help?" John looked at her steadily. "I do not know if I can stop them alone," he said, "but I know how to give your people a chance." Leora's eyes widened. "John, what are you going to do?" He did not answer with words. Instead, he moved quickly, issuing orders with clarity and precision. Humans were not trained in Violian warfare, but John had a talent for strategy that no alien could match. He positioned defenses, coordinated soldiers, and used the city's energy currents in ways the aliens had never imagined. The first wave of attackers arrived suddenly, swooping down with energy weapons that could destroy entire buildings. The city shook under the blasts, and the people below ran for cover. John moved among the defenses, adjusting energy shields, guiding soldiers, and anticipating the enemy's moves. He was calm, steady, and incredibly fast. Leora followed him, unable to keep up with his pace but watching closely. She had known he was clever, but she had not realized the full extent of his abilities. He was not just strong or brave. He was a master strategist, able to see several moves ahead and predict the enemy's actions before they occurred. The first enemy ship swooped low, firing on the city. John directed energy shields to intercept the blasts, stabilizing the shields with small adjustments of his hands. The shields shuddered but held, saving buildings and civilians from destruction. He then guided a group of Violian soldiers to attack the ships from below, using the city's environment to their advantage. The aliens were fast and well-coordinated, but John was faster and smarter. He moved like a force of nature, predicting their attacks, redirecting energy, and keeping the city safe. Leora watched, amazed, as the human she had married became a living weapon, not in a violent or cruel way, but in a controlled, precise, and clever way that made the invaders seem weak by comparison. Kayla and the council watched from the palace balcony. He is incredible," she whispered. "No Violian could do this. He is something else entirely." John did not notice their whispers. He was focused on the battle. One of the enemy ships had begun to descend near the palace itself, aiming directly for Leora's location. John acted immediately. He leapt forward, his movements fast and calculated, positioning energy shields to block the ship's weapons. Then, using a combination of human ingenuity and quick thinking, he redirected the city's energy currents to push the ship away. The attackers had not expected this. Their ship wobbled and veered off course, crashing harmlessly outside the city. Leora gasped. "John, how did you do that?" He did not respond immediately. He was already moving toward the next threat. "Observation and adaptation," he said quietly. "Humans survive by noticing patterns and using them. That is what I am doing." The next wave of attackers was even more dangerous. They came with faster ships, more weapons, and creatures that could walk on energy currents. John had to adjust quickly. He moved through the city, guiding energy flows, stabilizing shields, and coordinating soldiers to create traps that the invaders could not anticipate. Each trap worked perfectly, slowing down the attackers and giving the city time to respond. The creatures that walked on energy were particularly difficult. They leapt from building to building, moving with impossible speed. John studied them carefully, noticing patterns in their movement. He timed his attacks and movements perfectly, using energy barriers to redirect them and prevent damage. Leora watched in shock. He was not just fighting, he was controlling the battle, shaping it to his advantage. By the middle of the day, the city was still standing, thanks entirely to John's strategies. Civilians were safe, and the enemy had suffered heavy losses. The Violian soldiers had never fought so effectively. They were guided by a human who thought faster and adapted more quickly than any alien could. Kayla approached John, her face pale but respectful. I cannot believe it," she said. "You are human, and yet you are changing everything we thought we knew. You are saving our city, and we have never seen anything like it." John looked at her calmly. "I am only doing what humans do," he said. "We survive, we adapt, we protect those we care about, that is all." Leora touched his arm gently. "John, you are amazing," she said softly. "You are more than I ever imagined. You are extraordinary." John smiled faintly. "Extraordinary is just a word," he said. "I am human. We do what is needed to survive, that is all." As the day wore on, the attacks continued, but John had already turned the tide. The enemy had not expected a human to be so capable, so clever, and so quick to adapt. Ships crashed, creatures were trapped or redirected, and the city's energy flows were controlled perfectly. Even the council began to realize that this human was not just strong, he was a master strategist, a mind capable of seeing possibilities that the most intelligent Virelians could not. By evening, the attacks had stopped. The invaders retreated, leaving the city intact. The citizens of Virelia emerged from hiding, cheering quietly for the strange human who had saved them. Leora approached John, her eyes filled with pride and awe. "You did it," she said softly. "You saved the city, you changed everything." John looked at her calm and steady. "I only did what was necessary," he said. "Humans survive by acting when others cannot, that is all." Kayla stepped forward, bowing slightly. "John Miller," she said, her voice quiet but filled with respect, "you have shown us something we never expected. You are not just a human, you are a force beyond understanding. The galaxy must take notice." John shook his head. "I do not seek recognition," he said. "I only act when needed. That is all any human does." Leora smiled, holding his hand gently. "You are more than we imagined," she said. "You are not just strong, not just clever, you are something we cannot measure, and I am proud to call you my husband." John looked at her quietly. "I am proud to be with you," he said. "Together we can face anything." That night, as the sun set and the city of Virelia glowed softly under the light of the stars, John and Leora walked through the palace gardens. The air was calm, but John remained alert, noticing subtle shifts in energy, patterns in the city, and possible threats that might arise. Humans survived not by ignoring danger, but by understanding it, adapting to it, and acting decisively. Leora watched him closely, realizing the full scope of his abilities. He was not just a protector or a clever strategist. He was a human who could change the outcome of battles, guide entire cities, and make the impossible seem easy. She had married a human expecting companionship, perhaps even love. Instead, she had married a being who could shape the fate of an entire world. "You are incredible, John," she said softly, leaning close. John smiled faintly. "I am human," he said simply. "We do what is needed. That is our strength." And as the stars shone above Virelia, the alien queen understood the truth. The human she had married was more than clever, more than brave, more than strong. He was a force of nature, a being who could survive, adapt, and overcome anything. The city was safe for now, but John knew this was only the beginning. Greater challenges would come, threats that no one had yet imagined, and he would face them as he always had, observing, adapting, and acting when needed. Leora held his hand tightly. "I am glad you are here," she said softly. John looked at the city below, calm and steady. "As am I," he replied. "As long as we are together, we can face anything." And in that quiet moment, the alien queen realized that the galaxy itself would never be the same again because of him. The morning after the battle, Virelia was quiet. The city had survived, but the streets bore signs of the fight: scorch marks, fallen debris, and the occasional injured citizen being helped by medics. John Miller walked through the city with Leora at his side. The people stared at him as he passed, their eyes wide with respect, awe, and a little disbelief. He had saved their city, controlled the enemy, and shown a skill no alien had ever seen before. Leora glanced at him, her eyes still full of amazement. "I don't think anyone really understands what you are," she said softly. "You're not just clever or strong, you're something else entirely." John shook his head gently. "I am human," he said simply. "Humans survive, humans adapt, humans fight when needed, that is all." But even as he spoke, he knew that words would not explain it. The truth of his power, his adaptability, and his intelligence could only be seen in action. And soon, there would be another chance to demonstrate it. Reports arrived that the rogue faction of alien invaders had regrouped and were preparing for a larger attack. This time, it was not just a few ships or small creatures. It was a fleet bigger and faster than before, with weapons capable of destroying entire districts. The council panicked, unsure what to do. Humans had never been part of their strategic planning. They had not expected John to face such a threat alone. John calmly assessed the situation. "The fleet is fast but predictable," he said. "They rely on numbers and speed, not strategy. We can use that." He gathered the Virelian Council and the city's defenders, outlining a plan that was both simple and brilliant. Humans excelled at improvisation, thinking ahead, and using their environment. John used every tool available: The city's energy grids, the building's positions, and the natural flow of energy currents through Violear itself. Every move was calculated, every step intentional. The fleet arrived at midday. Dark ships moved in formation, firing at the city. The defenders tried to respond, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. Then John stepped forward. He coordinated energy shields to block the first attacks, redirecting blasts harmlessly into empty space. He guided Violean soldiers to strike at weak points, using clever maneuvers that no alien commander would have considered. As the battle intensified, John's abilities became more apparent. He could predict enemy movements, calculate trajectories, and adjust strategies in real time. He was not just reacting, he was controlling the battlefield. Every blast, every movement, every strike was anticipated and countered. Leora watched from the palace balcony, her heart pounding. She had seen John in action before, but never like this. He was everywhere at once, moving, calculating, guiding, and saving countless lives. The humans she had once thought ordinary were proving to be a species of unmatched adaptability and intelligence. John noticed a group of enemy ships attempting to flank the city from the north. He quickly analyzed the situation, using the energy currents flowing through the city as a trap. He redirected the currents to create a barrier, slowing the ships and forcing them into a narrow corridor. Then, with precise timing, he directed a series of energy blasts from the city's defenses that disabled the enemy ships completely. The aliens could not believe it. Kayla approached, watching him in awe. How are you doing this?" she whispered. "No Violean could think this fast." John shook his head. "It is not about thinking fast," he said calmly. "It is about observing, understanding, and acting at the right moment. Humans survive by doing this constantly. It is what makes us strong." The battle raged on, and John's true abilities began to shine even more. He noticed weaknesses in the enemy formation that even the Violeans could not see. He guided the city's defenses to exploit those weaknesses, turning the enemy's strength against them. Ships crashed into each other, creatures were trapped, and the invaders began to retreat. The city's defenders cheered quietly, knowing that a single human had made all the difference. But John was not finished. He knew the enemy could regroup. He turned to Leora and the council. "We need to send a message," he said. "They must understand that attacking this city is impossible." Using the city's energy cores, John created a controlled, visible display of power. Energy arcs danced through the sky, forming a pattern that no alien could mistake. It was both a warning and a demonstration of control. The enemy fleet, seeing the humans' capabilities, hesitated. Then, slowly, they turned and fled. The city erupted in cheers. Citizens poured into the streets, praising the human who had saved them. Leora ran to John, throwing her arms around him. "You did it," she said, her voice full of emotion. "You saved the city, you saved everyone." John held her gently. "We did it together," he said. "Violeans and humans working together, that is how we survive." Kayla and the council approached, their faces pale but respectful. "John Miller," Kayla said, bowing slightly, "you have done something no Violean has ever done. You have not only saved the city, but changed the way we see your species. Humans are not weak." "They are extraordinary," John shook his head. "I am only human," he said. "Humans survive, adapt, and protect those we care about, that is all." Leora looked at him, tears in her eyes. "You are more than human," she said softly. "You are something beyond anything we imagined. You have shown strength, courage, and intelligence that even our greatest minds could not match." John smiled faintly. "Extraordinary is only a word," he said. "I am human, that is enough." Over the next days, the city repaired itself. John worked quietly, guiding the rebuilding efforts, stabilizing the energy currents, and ensuring that no further danger would arise. Leora stayed close, learning from him, observing how he thought, moved, and acted. She realized that his true power was not in brute strength or technology. It was in his mind, his ability to see patterns, and his ability to adapt to any situation. The council held a meeting to discuss the human who had changed their world. Every member agreed that John Miller was unlike any being they had ever encountered. Even the most skeptical began to understand that humans were a species capable of feats that defied expectations. Leora approached John privately, her expression serious. "John, you have changed everything," she said. "The council, the city, even the enemies, they all see humans differently now. They see what I always knew, that you are extraordinary." John looked at her calmly. I only did what was necessary, he said. Humans survive by acting when others cannot, that is all. Leora shook her head, smiling through tears. You are more than necessary, John. You are remarkable. I am proud to be your wife. John held her hand gently. I am proud to be with you, he said. Together we can face anything. News of the human's actions spread across the galaxy. Stories of his clever strategies, calm control, and unmatched adaptability reached distant planets. Aliens everywhere began to reconsider their understanding of humans. They were no longer seen as weak, ordinary, or fragile. They were recognized as a species capable of intelligence, courage, and strength beyond expectation. John and Leora stood together on a balcony overlooking the city one evening. The air was calm, the energy currents soft and steady. The citizens below moved freely, no longer afraid. The city had survived, stronger than before. You have changed everything, John, Leora said softly. Not just for this city, but for all humans. John smiled faintly, looking at the horizon. Humans have always survived, he said. We adapt, we learn, and we act. That is our power. I only showed it. Leora leaned against him. You are incredible, she whispered. The galaxy will never forget you. And I will never forget you. John placed a hand gently on her shoulder. I am human, he said. I do not seek fame or recognition. I only act when needed. That is enough. The stars above Violia shone brightly, and for the first time John allowed himself to relax fully. The city was safe. The council had seen the truth. The aliens had learned a new respect for humans. And Leora, the queen, understood that the human she had married was not ordinary, not weak, and not simple. He was extraordinary, a force that could survive, adapt, and overcome anything. In the days that followed, the city celebrated quietly. Life returned to normal, but the memory of the human who had saved them remained. Children spoke of him in awe. Adults whispered his name with respect. And Leora knew, deep in her heart, that the galaxy had witnessed something rare. A human showing their true power, not through violence, but through intelligence, courage, and adaptability. John Miller had not just survived. He had changed the course of history, reshaped perception, and shown the universe that humans were capable of greatness beyond imagination. And as he stood with Leora, watching the city below, he knew that this was only the beginning. Humans would continue to face challenges, and they would continue to adapt, survive, and thrive. The alien queen looked at him once more, her eyes filled with pride and love. You are remarkable, John Miller, she said softly. John smiled faintly. I am human, he said. That is enough. And for the first time, the queen truly understood the truth. The human she had married was a force beyond measure, a being whose courage, intelligence, and strength could not be matched by any alien. The galaxy would never be the same again, because humanity had revealed its true power.